Wait, which one are we doing? It's the first one.
Wait, what day are we on? It's the
What's happening?
528. Oh my god.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Blair.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are
Mediocre
content. And it is officially March. Can you believe it?
Whoop, whoop. We're recording this in February, though, just saying. So it's not really March yet.
I mean, future me can't believe it either.
I know. Same. I can't believe we're almost, well, by the time you guys hear this, we'll be 3 months into 2023. Wild.
It's exhausting to think about so far into the future. And then once it's there, you're like, oh my gosh, it's already like the first week. Time's just going by. I know. It's all good things though. I mean, yeah, it's all good things.
It is. It is good things. All right.
I have a feeling this is going to be kind of a longer episode series, maybe. If you don't know by the title, this is going to be all about Women's History Month, which,
correct,
is exciting and amazing. But I think usually our special kind of ish episodes kind of run long, so buckle up to get comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be good. We all month we're doing like different, we're profiling different females in all aspects of life, I guess you could say.
And you shouldn't wonder what we're referring to. Again, if you've read the title of this episode, women identify as many different things, and sometimes it's insects, but we'll get to that.
I think you could have phrased that better, to be really honest with you, because it makes it seem like we're profiling women who think that they are insects, like human women who think that they're insects. Wait,
you don't think that there are human women who think that there are insects?
No, that like they are, like them they identify themselves as a queen bee.
Oh my gosh, they're probably all twisted around. You got me so confused. Say that again.
Okay, all right.
One more time.
Way that you said that makes it seem like there are human women who go around and say that they are queen bees, like in a literal sense of the word.
Oh. I don't think that they identify as bees.
Correct. We are actually profiling today. We are going over actual queen bees who are insects and not human people who think that they are queen bees.
However, I would just like to say, if you do, please don't take offense. It was not meant in that way.
Right.
If you do identify as an insect, that's perfectly fine. That is
correct.
Perfectly acceptable. But if you're just saying queen bee as in like I'm a baddie, that's also acceptable.
That's also fine. Yeah. No, that's
both are fine. I meant it as the other one.
This is to no offense to Beyonce or the Bay Hive either.
Whatever they are. No. This
got very convoluted.
But you made my brain spin. I was like, I don't know. Are the bees identifying as insects or what's happening? With that, we should probably do a disclaimer.
Yeah. All right. So clearly we don't know what we're talking about most of the time.
#experts.
So if you come to the podcast, get any kind of advice, don't do that. And if you want to learn about new things, you can come here for that. But just take it with a grain of salt. Okay.
Absolutely, please.
Good. Done. All right.
Good news.
Moving on into the good news. I got a really fun story for you guys today.
I'm excited.
And it's about sheep, and I'm so excited. Okay.
Adorable.
All right. So sheep are being used to graze underneath solar panels. And this is very helpful and very beneficial for many reasons.
And why?
So farmers, so everyone knows that farmers have recently, instead of growing crops, sometimes they rent out their fields to build solar panels to have solar farms, right? Okay. So farmers get profits from the solar panels, and if they have the sheep can get sheared and they make profits off of that as well.
Nice. Okay.
So that's beneficial for the farmers in two ways.
Sure.
The sheep get fed well by grazing,
Mm-hmm.
and their grazing also enriches the soil, which in turn gives the sheep better food and makes them grow fat and happy, and we love that for them.
Beautiful.
Number 3, farmers don't have to hire a lawnmower. Isn't that great?
Wait, I would like to go back to the soil enrichment.
Yes.
Is this just because they're grazing or because they're fertilizing and they're grazing?
Both.
Beautiful.
Both things.
Okay, just wanted to
Both
clarify.
things. Yeah.
Poop. Got it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then farmers don't have to hire a lawnmower, which is exciting for them. Another expense that they don't have to worry about. I mean, sheep are expensive, but they're also getting fed from the ground. So like
Right.
they don't have to spend that much money on food.
Right.
And then sheep are literally designed for this because they are very task oriented and they're short.
Oh.
For example, they tried to do this with goats and it just went terribly because the goats ate some of the, like, goats will eat anything.
Oh my gosh.
So they tried to chomp on the wires of the solar panels and they jumped because sheep like to be on tall things.
Yes.
Right. Or not sheep.
Man.
Goats. Goats like to be on tall things.
Yes.
So goats were like on top of the solar panels, which defeats the purpose. They were blocking the sun from getting into the solar panels.
Makes sense.
So the goats were not a vibe. So then cows cows have a similar temperament to sheep. They're also very task oriented, but they're just too tall. These solar panels are like 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and that's too much. So the sheep use the solar panels as shelter, and they get to eat the food of the grass.
By task oriented, I'm assuming you mean the task of eating.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Constantly.
Yes. The sheep have one job, and their job is to eat the grass, and that's it.
Yeah. Secondary.
And then the solar panels provide some shelter for them.
Right.
Which is nice.
Beautiful.
And, you know, it's a win-win situation. And the last thing is that the farmers, since they're not using these fields for any particular crops, I mean, they could, I guess. But you can also plant plants that are good for pollinators, and the sheep will also eat those.
Very topical.
Which is, yeah. So, I mean, it's helping. Let's see, we're helping the sheep by giving them food and shelter. We're helping the farmers by saving them money. And we're helping the pollinators by planting things that are yummy to sheep, but also good for pollinators.
And we're kind of helping the earth too, because less equipment out on the fields means less damage to the natural resources, but also less pollution coming out of like the tractor or the lawnmower or whatever you would use to unnaturally get rid of the grass.
Correct. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Blair, how, like, the methane that the sheep are giving off, that would probably contribute.
Farts. Got it.
Right. Yeah.
Gross.
So you would probably, that would contribute to the greenhouse gases. And you would be correct. That is true. But it is negated by the solar power in which we are using the solar panels for. So the math all works out.
Solar panels were able to dissipate sheep farts. That should be a news article.
Correct. Yeah. So anyway, this is a great idea, I think, and I love it
too.
And in Virginia, New York, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, they've already started doing this.
I believe that.
Virginia currently has 72,000 sheep just for this.
I am so surprised by Maryland. I don't know why. I've lived in Maryland, so I understand that there is farmland there.
Yeah.
I wonder how many sheep they have. Probably enough to make that one state smell as it does. No offense to anyone living in Maryland. However, I don't think the solar power is winning out on that one.
There is much to be discovered, and it's a work in progress.
You need more sheep.
Yes. But basically, sheep good, solar power good, farmers happy.
That's some good news.
I love it. It's the best news. All right. So this is a little bit more depending on how you look at it.
Mm.
It's but basically we're seeing in the news, in the wellness side of the news, that bread is now back in favor. Thank God. Because I remember growing
You
up,
can't
rice
keep up.
cakes were like the only carbohydrate that was
Ugh.
acceptable.
Don't even get me started.
And so we like carbs again. We're very excited. Everyone's excited.
This is not transitionary for me. I hate to say.
However, according to the dietitian in this article that I found on CNN.com, the not all bread is created equal.
Okay.
So we are on a mission to find the healthiest bread. And this is how you do that. So if you want like white bread, you like white bread.
Sure.
And sourdough is your best option because it is basically fermented bread based on, you know, the sourdough starter and all that stuff. And then you bake it, and it still has the microbes that are good for your gut. So that's exciting.
Can we back up a second?
What?
Fermented?
Yeah. The sourdough starter is yeast that's like fermented, and that's why it has that like sour flavor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't want to eat mold bread. Oh my gosh.
All bread is mold bread. It's just stopped at a different time.
That's fair. Well, you didn't have to say it like that.
You're welcome. It's it's like the all eggs are chicken periods. Just ruined eggs for like everyone.
So don't say it like that.
You're welcome.
Ruined chickens and bread today.
This is science, but I didn't ruin sheep for you though.
Yeah, sheep are in. I'm into that.
Sheep are in. All right. So sourdough is good for you if you like white bread. It's good for your gut, and it's also easier for people who are gluten intolerant to digest.
Nice.
Now, if you are looking for a whole wheat or whole grain option, they usually have those kinds of breads usually have more fiber, which is good for you, good for your gut. We like fiber. And you can, but you just have to be careful because some of the bread that you find in the stores, you know, their first ingredient is not always whole grains. Okay. So just read your labels, be conscious of that, look at the fiber content, and you'll be fine. If you want a little extra fiber, you can get the bread with the like seeds around the rim or around the rim, I guess, like on the crust.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And that is always a good option as well. But if the best option is to go to your local bakery and get fresh bread. And I know that's not possible for everyone.
Yeah.
But if you have the opportunity to do so, or like a farmer's market or something like that, get your bread from a local person who bakes it themselves.
Or make it yourself.
That's right.
If you're so inclined.
You can do that. Yes. Bread makers exist.
Yeah.
And then the other thing the dietitian said that the low calorie breads, she said those are no good because they have a lot of extra chemicals and stuff in them
that make them low calorie.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You're better just going all natural because calories aren't necessarily, I mean, calories are not bad. You need calories to survive and thrive.
Correct.
And all of those things. But you just have to be careful where they're coming from because if they are chemically and you're like, oh, this is great, but it's not actually doing your body any good, that's definitely something to be aware of. Yeah, I am not the person that makes bread though.
No.
I also don't
have time for that.
Though. No, we have bakeries around here, but it's just like it's like more than one stop. I'm not gonna lie, I'm too lazy for that.
I understand.
That's telling of me, but that's fine.
So just a grain of salt for everyone. Have your bread. Just make sure it's good bread that you like.
Yeah, good bread.
And it's calorie dense and it's good for you. Exactly.
It's not all bread tastes good either. Now that's I'm really having a conniption over the sourdough, but I'll move on.
We can come back for it later. We can do like therapy later for you. About sourdough bread therapy.
Sad. Well, that's some excellent news. I don't have anything else associated with bread. But I do
no transition.
No transition from that. I'm just sad about it, honestly.
I'm sorry I ruined bread for you.
No, it's fine. I'll just kick us off. Women are great.
True.
And
Absolutely true.
and this month we are celebrating them with an unconventional topic about
Starting off strong.
um we're talking about queen bees, and I do mean the insect in this case. I want to be very clear.
We're on board.
You can be a bad bay all you want, but we're talking about bees today. So the queen bee is amazing, and if you don't know, she lives in a hive of other females typically, and she is the mother of all of those bees in the hive. She's responsible for laying all the eggs that will become female worker bees or a male drone. And she lives her life inside that hive, attended to by her lovely worker bees who groom and feed her, and she lives her best life.
It's giving spoiled.
Okay. So the queen bees are spoiled.
It's giving Cleopatra, and then like she's got 2 worker bees just like fanning her with like honeycomb.
She's getting grapes or something.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway. So for the spoiled honeybees can sense when they need a new queen. And this is important because we're going to go through essentially the start and the end to a queen bee in a hive. So you have all of your worker bees that are female, male.
Are you saying by the end of this, we're going to see how the queen bee finally meets her doom?
Indeed. Yes. No.
Oh, good.
They're doomed. Yes.
This will be fun.
It's actually, when I was reading through this, I was like, that's really aggressive. That is more aggressive than I thought it was going to be. And you're going to be a little shocked. Shocked and appalled.
I'm so excited.
So great. Strong, independent women in here. Okay. So let's say we're in a hive. Okay.
Yes.
And we're female worker bees, and we're just buzzing around, right? We got work to do, comb to make, all that.
Got it.
Suddenly, we sense in our little tiny bee bodies, queen's not doing so good, right? She's putting off
our
pheromones.
Spidey senses are tingling.
We're not spiders. Let me reiterate. No. We are bees. Those are arachnids.
You know what I mean. You know, okay, fine. All right.
Basically, what's happening is the queen is producing lower levels of her pheromone that basically tells all of her worker bees, hey, I'm good. Life is great. Keep doing what you're doing. It's fallen off a little bit. She ain't feeling that great.
Uh-oh.
The nurse bees, which is very fun. That's what I'm going to call you from now on. Nurse Blair bee. Will select from about 10 to 20 newly hatched female larvae. And with this pheromone, she's like, not doing good. She's going to start giving those little baby larvae a diet of what's called royal jelly. And this is something that is secreted from the top of their heads, which is also kind of interesting. I don't know. The royal jelly is made of proteins, simple sugars, fatty acids, B vitamins, trace minerals, and antibacterial and antibiotic components.
B vitamins.
B vitamins.
But it's also for the bees. So it's B vitamins.
I feel like this is going to be very punny. It is starting off to be very funny. But yes, it's got all of those B vitamins. And actually, just kind of taking on a little tangent here, they do use royal jelly in a lot of medicine science and a lot of like medication therapies for their antibacterial and antibiotic components. So royal jelly is, you'll if you look up, literature on studies that are on royal jelly, it's typically associated with medicine and things like that because it has those properties. So just kind of a fun fact on the side.
Cool.
But basically they're secreting this, feeding this to the female larvae that they choose and select, because basically what's happening is they're going to turn one of those larvae into new queens that will then replace the queen who's currently not doing very well.
Makes sense.
So these
So
now,
the
yeah,
nurse bees are like the talent
the nurse
scouts.
bees are indeed the talent scouts.
I
They're
love
out,
it.
they're just vibing. They're like, you know what? You look like an excellent candidate for this.
Love it. Okay, great.
And they're babies, so they don't know.
Right.
Um, but each queen will develop then in what's called a queen cell, and it kind of looks like a peanut shape, is what they indicated.
Hmm.
And when the queen bee larvae is ready to pupate, which just means
I
metamorphosize,
love that word. Anyway,
pupate, it's
continue.
beautiful. When they're ready, the worker bees will cap the cell, and then she will go ahead and do her little transformation inside the cell. It's about 15 days for a full development, and then she will chew her way out of the cell with the help of some of the worker bees. And this is where things get aggressive.
I'm excited. Okay.
All right. The queen bee of choice has chewed her way out of her queen cell. She's about to do some very violent things to her sisters.
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think you're about to answer it. I think you're about to answer it. Never
Okay.
mind. Okay, continue.
So
Continue.
she's out of her cell, and her first instinct is, I have to murder my sisters. Because
Can you say that
apparently,
again?
murder, because I don't want to say
Oh,
the
okay.
other word.
All right. Fine.
Murder. She needs to get rid of the competition. This is what's happening. Okay. So
Okay.
she will elicit a noise. It's called piping. And basically, it's a chirp. And she's like, hey. And all of her sisters then go, hey. And then she knows exactly where they are. And then she stabs them viciously to death with her stinger.
But they all have this instinct.
Yes.
This is what I don't understand. So they
it's
all
like the first emergent, is what I'm understanding.
Okay, so if whoever's the first to emerge is the
And
one
yeah,
that wins.
That's my
Okay.
impression. I would assume if multiple have emerged, they would just continue to fight to the death.
Fight to the death.
Fight to the death. But so that's what they're doing to their hive mates, right? The ones that are also kind of in this queen cell, the candidates.
Yeah.
But if her mother, the current queen, has not swarmed away, which just basically means the queen may take a group and go away and start like a new hive somewhere else. If she doesn't do that and she's still in the hive as the new one is coming,
but she's like dying.
Sure.
So she leaves when she's dying.
Some of them do, apparently.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're just like, all right, Audi 500, I'm out,
Cool. Got it.
Sometimes they don't. And so they residing there. You can't have two. They will also end her life.
That seems reasonable. All right.
Seems legit.
Seems accurate for what, based on what little I know about this already. seems in character.
Correct. And so now they have this, all the competition is gone, and she'll do something called like a one-time flight, where she'll go to all the male drones that are in there, and basically what she's doing is collecting the male gene and producing the opportunity to then lay eggs as the new queen in the hive.
I need to ask a question.
Before you do that, let me just add this one thing.
Okay.
So after her lap around the hive in her HOE phase, she now has enough fertilized eggs for the next 3 to 5 years. Can you that is insanity. That was my question. Oh, good. Right. Yeah. Okay. So she does one lap and she's good for like a whole 5 years. Okay. So she's
good. Getting it on, man.
She's like, I'm new at life. I have now bedurdered my whole sister clan and my mom, and now I'm entering my HOE phase. And I'm good for the next 5 years. You should have put her in. She's a bad bae, okay? She came into this world swinging.
Okay. That is some big D energy right there.
That's a big entrance to the world.
Yeah.
For the most part, for the rest of her life, she's just attended to also.
Right.
Again, a little.
So in the first day of life, she does all the work she's ever gonna have to do.
Correct. And she just chills for the rest of her life.
Seems
basically.
Great. Actually.
It does, yeah. But she'll drag her abdomen along the hive as they're walking through because basically what they're doing is selecting areas for brood chambers. And this is, uh, boxes in the hive where the queen can live. If the
Mm.
cell is empty, she will drop her abdomen into the cell, lay an egg, which is great. And then that larvae will turn into usually a worker bee, or I think maybe a male drone, depending on what they need at the time. I'm not 100% sure how that works. Um, but most insects, just another fast fact, most insects that you encounter are female. So, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I did
That
not know
is
that.
a that is something I learned on the nature hikes with Linda Fink.
Oh,
If you know who that is, I'm sure you
that's
do.
interesting. I do.
Um, yeah, most insects apparently are female that you encounter in the world. Uh,
Wow.
it's amazing. And in the summertime, she can lay up to 2,000 of those eggs a day. Incredible. So keep in mind, she's laying 2,000 eggs a day in the summertime, but she's also good for the next 3 to 5 years. That is a ton of eggs.
What an interesting day she had
she,
her first day.
she was
What
fully
an
equipped, ready to roll,
what an interesting time.
She will stop from time to time if she needs a groom or a bite to eat from her attendants, and they will basically form circle around her and walk around her, spreading her pheromone through the hive, basically telling everybody, "Hey, doing good, thriving here." And they'll all be like, "Awesome, we will continue to do what we're doing." And that's pretty much it for the beginning of her life. And then as she starts to kind of fade, or maybe she leaves the hive in a swarm and, starts another hive somewhere else, same process repeats itself. And that is the life cycle of a new queen bee.
So, okay, so you
Hmm.
mentioned like swarming,
Indeed.
and I know that there's like really interesting videos of this all over the internet.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but like
Mhm.
usually with a swarm, like the first thing people try to do is locate the queen, like in the swarm.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's how they like relocate them to another place.
Correct.
So is a swarm always caused by the queen just like leaving her main hive because she's like dying? Or is it because I guess sometimes
Mm,
they get like misplaced or like
yeah.
unhoused, maybe is a
I'm
better way.
honestly not sure. uh, I wish I knew more. At some point I would love to have an apiary and learn all of these things and like
Mm-hmm.
be able to better understand how their lifestyle works. And I know that outside of just understanding how they live, where they live, how they get from place to place, where they swarm, when they all of those things, there's also like different bacterias and illnesses that are going on that they're trying to combat. I mean, we had the good news, like, I don't remember what episode
It
about
was a
them.
couple episodes ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about trying to fix, that one type of disease that they're experiencing. So, like, I don't actually know, but I would love to know. And listener, if you know, feel free to send it in. We always let you know how to connect with us, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
One of my cousins has an apiary.
I would love to have one. I want
Yeah.
one so bad, but it's kind of difficult to do when you don't live in your own house.
Yeah. It would
Yeah.
definitely be weird if like
Yeah.
you rented a place and
You have bees now, so enjoy.
sorry.
Sorry.
You can't just like take them with you in the car. It doesn't work that
No.
way.
And also, I feel I'm honestly super jealous because I kind of not that I would want them in my house or like in a weird spot that where they wouldn't thrive, but I'm also like, there are tons of people that have like full boxes ready for the bees to be like, "Hey, want to chill here?" And then they just end up in someone's like attic space naturally, just thriving. Oh my goodness. I'm so jealous of that. I feel like that's what would happen to me.
Yeah. I it's interesting how animals do that, right? They're
Yeah.
like, nope, this is a perfectly good home and I'm just gonna go in somebody's attic instead.
Literally buys a cat tree, cat plays in box. Like that's what it feels like,
Right.
you know?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. They're like, the vibes are not right.
No, just really throw me off. I feel like that's what it's going to be like to have pet bees. But anyway, do you want to buzz on over to the ad segment?
I love how you did that. And yes, let's
Okay.
buzz right on over. Hi, Kirsten.
Hi, Blair.
Do you have cats?
Why, yes, I do.
Then you should play mediocre content for your cats.
And why is that?
Because it has been shown to soothe cats and reduce hairballs.
Really?
Yes, in fact, I play mediocre content for my cats too. Mediocre content is for all pets.
That's so great to know. I will play mediocre content for my cats right now.
You should. Everyone should listen to mediocre content with their pets today.
Mediocre content has not been shown to reduce hairballs or soothe any animals of any species. In fact, it's very probable to create the exact opposite effect. Please use caution while exposing your furry friends to mediocre content. It's also pretty dodgy for humans, so listen at your own risk. Mediocre content is not responsible for any negative effects of podcast listening.
And welcome back, everybody. We are racing into the second half of our beautiful queen bee segment, literal queen bees, and secret bays.
This is very cool. I'm just looking over the second half.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
very excited.
Okay, so technically the second half is not going to be as focused on the queen bee so much as bees in general, because the classification, as far as I could tell, was if you're considered a bee, you're a bee because you have a queen in a hive structure of some sort with the queen included. So we're just going to go with that.
I thought they were bees because they sting people.
That is not true.
And they have they look like a bee.
This is interesting. You will find out in the rest of this. However, not all bees have stingers. Yeah. So
how misleading.
I know. Confusion. Okay. So numbers. There are 20,000 known bee species throughout the world, and 4,000 of those are native to the United States.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a big number.
That's a good chunk.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of them, but that's okay. They range from super teeny tiny at about 2 millimeters. And that particularly is called the solitary Perdita minima. Minima probably meaning minimal or small.
Small as hell.
Shamal. Also known as the world's smallest bee, obviously. And then for some reason, we're now comparing them to food. And it says up to a kumquat size species, the carpenter bee. And I got to be honest.
Oh,
I don't know how big a kumquat is.
I do.
Oh, good.
I would say ping pong ball sized.
Okay. That's sizable.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Carpenter bees, I know who they are.
Oh, yes. Yeah. They're good.
They're special. They're fat.
Don't call them out like that.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to fat shame the carpenter bees, but they are big boys.
They are the biggest girls.
Oh, excuse me. Again, I misgendered them.
It's so aggressive.
Being so mean to the bees.
Why don't we go over the bees? Let's go over the types of bees then.
All right. Educate me.
Okay. So we have a couple of types that are similar to each other. So the first three are all different kinds of what's known as sweat bees. And I think a lot of people know what these are. They're kind of on the smaller side for the most part. The first one is the green metallic sweat bee. They're about 1/4 inch long, and they're typically this beautiful metallic green kind of color.
Nice.
The pictures of them are actually really pretty. There's also the striped green sweat bee. This one reminded me of those, you know how you have like the Stripers mints, like the hard mints. Okay, they look like the green ones of those. Okay. Yeah. Well, their abdomen does anyway.
Got it.
They have a green metallic head and thorax with a yellow and black striped abdomen. If you look at the photo, you will see that metallic green, and it looks like striping on the back. Looks like a full mint. And then there's just regular sweat bees that aren't really characterized by any of those other things. And they're just tiny little bees that measure about 1/4 to 1/2 inch long. They are small, and they're like the typical black yellowish abdomen type.
Yes.
Those are sweat bees. Then we get into bumblebees. They're very hairy, and they are half to a full inch in length, and they can be various colors of black, white, yellow, orange, and kind of a rusty brown. So they have a really wide variety of different color combinations that they can be, but they're the little fuzzy boys or girls, depending of how you would like to classify
I mean,
them.
mostly girls, if we're based
Mostly
on what
girls.
you told me earlier.
Yeah. Then there are leafcutter bees. They're very industrious. They use their little mandibles to move pieces of leaf, and they'll take it back to their nest, and they just use those to build little cups that kind of stack on top of one another. And each little cup that's built will hold a single egg, and then, of course, whatever the larvae needs to grow and be strong and, form as another leafcutter bee. These bees are about half an inch long, and there's about 140 species of these in North America. The one distinct feature of these is like an upward tipped, flattened, stripped abdomen, which is very weird. The picture, I feel like I would know what it is, but then I would look at it and be like, well, you could be any of these bees. So is it distinctive for someone who doesn't know what they're looking at? No. Then we have longhorn bees. This is interesting because it specifically denotes the characteristics of the male. The males of this type of bee have extremely long antennae, and I feel like this to me is a very distinctive feature. Like if it was a female, you might not know, but if you saw this bee and it was the male version, you'd be like, ugh, that's a longhorn bee. They're about half an inch long, and they have hairy little legs and thoraxes, and they have bands of pale colored hair along their abdomen, and they love sunflowers, was what the article said specifically.
Interesting.
So
stay away from sunflowers.
Yeah, be wary of sunflowers. And I think about that though, because I've been to many sunflower patches in my lifetime, and I wonder if I've encountered this type of bee before and just didn't know what type it was.
Probably. I mean, I feel like most people, if it's flying and it looks like it could potentially be a bee, they usually don't stick around long enough to like figure it out.
No, that's fair. I have no problem with the bees at sunflower farms though, because they're usually preoccupied, like they're busy. Yeah.
Very preoccupied.
Then we're on to Blair's favorite, the carpenter bee. They're carpenter bees because of what they typically eat. They make nests out of wooden pieces of, your fence, your shed, your barn.
Yes, they do.
And they will chew that stuff to ruin, especially if it's a huge colony.
May I tell a brief story?
Oh, please. Absolutely.
Okay. So my family used to live, when we were little kids, we used to live in a farmhouse, and in the backyard, we lived on like an acre of land, and then there was a huge like red barn in the back.
Okay.
And this barn was not functional for like anything really. My dad just put like tools and like old wood and just typical
stuff.
Things.
Yeah.
Stuff like workshop stuff like in the barn. So my first experience with carpenter bees was in this barn.
Yes.
And they would just burr holes that were like a quarter in width and diameter in the side of the barn. And anytime you even got like within 5 feet of the barn, you could hear the buzzing. Like it aggressive. Was very aggressive. And I was always kind of afraid of them, but that's also kind of how I learned, like, if you don't bother them, they won't bother you. Bees are very task oriented for the most part.
Like sheep.
Like sheep.
Yes. And it's interesting that you say that, because the males don't have stingers. And they're usually the ones that would buzz around you to try and like say, hey, go away. I live here.
Right.
They're pretty harmless altogether, other than the chewing of your structures.
Correct.
They do more physical damage to the structure than they would do to you. It's basically that.
So
that's great.
Anyway, that's my experience with carpenter bees.
So you love them.
They're all right. We're acquaintances. We're workplace proximity associates.
If you ever want to identify one of these things, they do have a pretty loud buzz, and they are fairly sizable as
They're
well.
Giant. They're so big.
They're up there with the bumblebees. Like, they are large. But the difference between the carpenter bee and the bumblebee is the bumblebees are completely fuzzed out, whereas a carpenter bee is actually bald on its abdomen and it just has like a fuzzy head area. So that's like the easiest way. And again, but the larger bees are weirdly enough the most docile of the bee types for the most part.
That makes sense though. Like, larger animals are usually more docile.
Exactly. But there are smaller carpenter bees, and they're literally called small carpenter bees. They're about a 1/4 inch long, and they're dark black, and they have kind of like a metallic sheen to them. And there are about 20 species of these. They're really easy to identify. They're about barrel-shaped, blunt-ended abdomen kind of look, and a stocky, blocky head.
Okay.
And some species will even have like kind of a white marking on their face. But honestly, even if you didn't know, just the size alone difference would tell you if you had them side by side. You'd be like, this is the smaller version of this.
Yes.
And then there's carder bees, known for collecting fuzz from plant leaves, which is adorable. They will use this to line the nests that they're making, and there's about 20 plus native species found in the Southwest area. That's where they reside most of the time.
Interesting.
They're around 1/2 inch long. They have a smooth upper abdomen and a clear pattern of yellow or white markings. So pretty distinctive, but again, you're probably only going to find them in the Southwest of the United States. And then European honeybees, which, as the name implies, they are not native here. They're actually found in Europe, and they were brought over here. They're about 1/2 inch long with black and honey-colored stripes, and it's probably the one that you encounter the most. If you look into your garden, that's probably what you're going to find, unless there's a carpenter bee in your barn. So
right, yeah, exactly.
But that's what we got. And all of these are species. So you hear carpenter bees and longhorn bees. There are tons of different species within those. So that's where you get like the 4,000 native species. That's just a type of bee that has multiple species within the type.
Got it.
Clarifying there.
The web gets bigger.
So dense. And it takes me back to college. And then I kind of wanted to include this because I think it's important. We were talking about the apiaries and, kind of what we can do to contribute to the longevity of our pollinators. And then also the sheep segment in your good news. It's like, what are we doing to assist? And there's multiple different pollinators, but bees, for example. What you can do to help the bees and, keep the queen living her best bay life is to learn to identify these native bees. Do a little bit of research, see what's in your garden, what's around you, what's thriving, and just kind of do your own research in that way. We're always big advocates of that, but especially if you're trying to help.
Do this from a safe distance. You don't have to get all up in their grill.
Do not. They will not appreciate it.
And also, if you don't know if you're allergic to bees or not, just be careful.
Be cautious. And if you are allergic to bees, you can still help. Just keep your epidural.
That's right.
Epidural. Oh my gosh. I've got queen bee on the mind. I'm like, she's gonna need an epidural for like 2,000 eggs a day.
Stop it.
Oh, sorry. EpiPen.
She means her EpiPen.
Yes, EpiPen. But also feel free to get an epidural if you feel like you need one.
No. Okay.
Protect their habitats. Similar to the sheep section of this podcast. You may have a habitat that's conducive for them already, but you can also do things that make sense. So planting or preserving areas that are left, to their own devices. You can look up specific pollinator plants that work well in the area that you can plant to help them.
I saw a guy on TikTok. If you have extra room in your yard and you don't care about having like a really organized garden, or want to put a lot of effort into your garden at all, just go to like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever and get like a 50-cent pack of wildflower seeds and just sprinkle them all over your ground, and they'll just do the work for you.
And I have seen also in the same vein of people literally just not caring about their yard at all and just planting wildflowers, and it's just their whole yard.
Or I've also seen, this is going on a tangent.
No, it's
like instead of getting regular grass, get like clover in your yard.
Yes, I have heard that also.
Because it doesn't mess up the soil as much, and it doesn't grow very tall, so you'd never have to mow your lawn. And
it's soft.
Yeah. And cute.
And cute.
And it's good for bunnies and bees and all kinds of other stuff.
Exactly. So, and again, you know, like we said, there are some bees that are in the Southwest. There are some that are in the Northeast. You know, figure out what your bees would like or your pollinators are into. Figure out what your soil can handle or what your yard can do, and then just kind of base it off of that. There's multiple different techniques that you can use to help these guys out.
Absolutely.
But also be mindful of your own garden management practices. There's a lot of insects in general that are highly sensitive to pesticides. So if you do feel like you need to get rid of maybe an unwanted pest because they're invasive, just consider the best way to do that without impacting negatively the other insects that are doing well in your garden and should be there to help, you know, your garden out.
Exactly.
Create pollinator habitats. You can do this naturally, or, you know, there's also bee boxes and things for apiaries that you can use. And then other kinds of nesting sites. Again, figure out what bees are near you. They may have different nesting habits that you have to consider, such as like funnel or tunnel nesting, or there's some bees that create those cups. So just kind of figure out, you know, what they like, what they prefer. And if you can provide natural options, great. But artificial are also welcome. And that's kind of it on the bees, honestly.
We love that.
It started a little turbulent, I'm not gonna lie. I can't believe
violent.
Extreme violence, and then we're like, help save the bees. It's a big 180 for the podcast.
I know.
But
it's good.
I'm excited that, you know, this is the start of our Women's History Month. I think it's a great way to start. It's not conventional, which is always fun. And
next week we'll have an actual woman.
A human woman.
Yeah, a human woman.
A human woman. I'm excited. This is going to be a great series. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Then we'll wrap up this episode. Feel free to send us an email with any questions, comments, or concerns, or episode topic suggestions.
Definitely concerns. Let us know if you're concerned.
You can send us those at mediocrecontentpodcast@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at mediocre squawks, or follow us on Instagram at mediocre content podcast. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.